Tell me your story.
Tell me your story.
How did it all start? Do you remember?
Oh, now what happened? How did it stop?
This is Small Business Origins.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Small Business Origins. I'm your host, as always, John Kelly, aka John the Marketer on Instagram and TikTok. We are on a nationwide search. We're looking for entrepreneurs that have a story to tell. And today, still joining me virtually, but a lot closer than the nationwide search we've been on, right here in my backyard from Galveston, Texas, I've got Phyllis Williams-Strawder. She is known as the Ghetto Country Brandmother with Brandma's House. Brandma, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, sweetheart. I'm so happy to be here. And it's like, just knowing that you're this close, it's like, dang, we could have done this in person.
I know, right? It's just, you know, we got so many people coming in that want to be on the show. And I'm not saying that to brag. I am super humble about it. Like, this is a dream come true for me. I'm so glad people want to be here, that it just gets hard to kind of figure out where everyone's from ahead of time and know all that stuff. And it's just something I should have looked at, because absolutely, I mean, it's warm enough here in Texas right now. We could have done this on the beach or something, you know?
Oh, see, now you're playing with me.
Well, before we hop into everything and figure out what a Brandma is and all this stuff, we have got to start out with our icebreaker question, because we always start out with an icebreaker question. And today's is super serious. It is, are you more productive at night or in the morning? And do you think it's possible to change and get used to another schedule than what you're currently doing?
Oh my God, I am a sleepaholic. So it just hits me when it hits me. Sometimes I'll wake up at 4:00 and I keep my laptop closed, and I promise you, I'll be sitting there, because I got one of those high beds. I'll be sitting at 4:00 in the morning with my feet hanging off the bed, and I'm working. And then I'll take a nap and I'll wake up at 10 and I'll do some more work. I am not a nighttime person. I can honestly say that. I can do it in the morning, but by the time nighttime gets here, my brain is kind of fried. It's like, I've done all I can. I'm through. Just through.
Yeah. I've got this weird schedule where I am like most productive right after lunch, somewhere, if I don't eat a huge lunch and go, you know, crazy, somewhere between like that noon to 4 or 5 o'clock is like a super productive time for us here as a team. And I don't know why. And I think it's always possible to change, right? You can put your mind to it and do it. But I have been super intentional about my sleep and making sure I'm getting enough rest each day, because I'm so tired of feeling groggy. Plus, we're kind of on this like losing weight, working out, being healthy, eating better. And so it's like, I just want to feel better. But the problem I have is, it's just, for me, I'm a nighttime person. And sometimes I do the same thing. It's like I get on a roll, and then the next thing I know, I'm looking and it's 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, bro, you need to be asleep. You got to wake up early for work tomorrow. Like, what are you doing? But I don't want to stop because I'm on a roll.
You get caught up in it.
I think it's possible to change. I just think that it's extremely difficult to find the willpower to do so, because it's just, at that point in time, my wife and kids are asleep. I've got silence in the house.
It's that part. Yes.
Yeah.
When I get up at 5 a.m, it's to get up before Neil and Morgan start moving around, because then all I'm hear is, baby, mom. Yeah. Like, no. Let me get my time in before they get started.
Yeah. I will say, I'm lucky. My poor wife is not. Those kids definitely say mama more than they say anything else in the world. And at first she used to brag about it and try to like cap on me for it. Be like, oh yeah, I'm the favorite. And I knew way ahead of time this was a good thing. And I said, you're right, mom, you're the favorite. And then, so now my son my 4-year-old will bypass me with something in his hands to walk up and say, Mom, can you open this, while she's like cooking or doing something? And then she just turns around and looks at me and she's like, I mean, are you invisible? And I'm like, hey, you're the favorite. You're the favorite.
I can beat that. My daughter will sit up here and she will call and text me saying, can you call dad and ask? I'm like, seriously, you're on your phone and you're asking me to call your father. Really? Yeah. It's that kind of crazy.
Kid logic, man. Kid logic. Well, we're here to talk about you. So, you know, let's just start with your origin story. Tell me where you came from, how you got into entrepreneurship, all that stuff.
I actually kind of tripped into it. Back in the day when we were still living in California, my husband started doing barbecue competitions, and he was dipping into my shoe money. And I'm like, okay, we got to find a way for him to pay for these competitions, because they were not cheap. And so what we ended up doing is we started selling dinners or lunches from our dining room table. And I know food is my husband's love language. It's like, dude speaks food, sleeps food. He just eats food. But it was so much so that I knew he should have been cooking for a living. And me and my big mouth, I said, baby, do you want to do this for a living? And he's like, hell yeah. Like, oh, okay. So now being the wife that I am, I got to figure out how my husband can do this for a living. And we went from the dining room table to getting into farmers markets. And we stayed in farmers markets for a long time because we were just very comfortable. But that comfort started turning into complacency. And so we decided to open a restaurant. So we went from that restaurant and I'm giving you the really short version. We went from that restaurant to opening a second restaurant, and we did barbecue for a living. We did Big Mrs. Barbecue, and then our second restaurant was Big Mrs. Morning Wood, because everything we smoked for breakfast in the morning, it was that whole kind of vibe.
I love it.
So we had that second restaurant, and we were doing good. We were doing really good, but the more that we did, the more I knew that this was not my thing. I don't cook on purpose, not even for my child. And everybody that knows me knows that. But here I am in this restaurant business with my husband. I'm like, dude, I love you a whole lot, and I want to stay married to you today. So how about I step out? And it took me 10 years to get enough courage to say it and mean it, because I had fired and quit a lot of times, but I had never really meant it until that last time. Until that last time. And so when he finally saw that, you know, she's serious this time, what are we going to do? And it was as simple as having the conversation. And I'm guessing he was because the joy got taken out of it for him, because it was now part of our living. So I said, what you going to do? He said, I'm rolling with you. So we had this conversation in June. We told everybody in our business that July 3rd was our last day. We sold our house as is, and we were out in August. We were just done. And from there, I went into business coaching, and I kind of really sucked at it, only because I was used to putting my husband in front of the camera. He was the one that did the TV, the news segments, and all of that kind of stuff. But now I had to speak up for myself. And that was so hard for me, because I'm used to being behind the scenes. I was kind of resentful behind the scenes because everybody thought he did everything on his own. But I was used to being behind the scenes. And what ended up happening is I had to get back to how I was in the restaurant. And I didn't know how people were going to take that, because I don't believe in the whole code switching of it all. And that's what I was trying to do. So it made me very ineffective as a business coach. And I had to go back and own my, excuse me, I had to go back and own my ghetto country. And when I tell people I'm ghetto country, I say I was raised hood adjacent by a country mama. It's just what it is. Yeah. It does not mean I'm raised. I have my education. I have my certifications and all of that kind of stuff. But I had to come out of what I thought was a stigma for me. And as soon as I started owning that whole ghetto country vibe, because my mama and them from Texas, but as soon as I started owning that whole vibe, things began to change for me. And I started to speak up more, and I started to attract more clients and everything. But it was just, I had to get out of my own way. I had to realize, you know what, you can't push him out there anymore. You got to speak up for yourself. Otherwise, nobody's going to know what you do. And so I pivoted from when I saw the restaurant industry getting hit hard. I wanted to help them so bad, being a former restaurant owner, but they didn't want to pay me. And we all know that they talk about the slim profit margins and all that kind of stuff, but they didn't want to pay me. So you know what? I pivoted into branding, and it was something that I loved. And so eventually the Brandma was added on. I became the Ghetto Country Brandmother. Like I say, still being raised hood adjacent by a country mama, but now we're going to turn your personal brand into a scalable brand that you can be more than a business of one. That is the short version.
Yeah. Well, I love it because, you know, it just takes you back to kind of like what we've always been taught and what we've always learned. And that is that you are who you are. Yeah. And yes, you can change traits. You can change personality traits and all this stuff, but you have to be true to who you are as a person. Yeah. And I relate to that so hardcore because I was born and raised, you know, I was born in Houston, Texas, raised in Waller, Texas. Mm-hmm. Waller, Texas is this small podunk town, but at the same time as it's like an old country town, mm-hmm. you know, Prairie View is right next door, and Waller was actually historically more of a majority of African-American culture and history than it was, you know, white country, what you would mm-hmm. assume to be country. But see, this is what I knew growing up in Waller that, you know, which is a lot of people don't understand, is country doesn't always mean old white dudes with straw in their mouth and everything else. Ghetto country is a real thing. Mm-hmm. And there are absolutely, like, everybody that I grew up with in Waller, all the white cowboys that I knew black cowboys too. you know, and it was like we were just so melded together that we didn't see kind of like in big cities. I feel like you can see that separation between like, you know, not just race relations, because I think that obviously out here in Texas, I think we all get along a lot better than some people want to kind of make it out to be on a national level. But it's so crazy to me that I just grew up where country didn't mean white and ghetto didn't mean black. It meant whatever race you are, you can be either one of those things. So I kind of relate to that with you, where it's like I always draw on my country roots because it's just where I came from. But at the same time, I grew up in that same, like, I've listened to rap music all my life, and I've kind of had that same ghetto culture, if you will, driven into me by family members and friends that were all just a part of that. So I love that you took it and said, I'm going to own both sides of this and make it my brand. And then figured out, well, if I can do that for myself, I should be able to scale this and do this for others. I think it's a great thing where it's like, hey, I'm going to be who I am. And if you love working with me because of it, which I already love talking to you more than other people because of it, then it's like, all right, cool. Now we can work together and I can help you do the same thing no matter what your brand is. We can own where you came from, who you are, and make it something. It's the reason that I go by John the Marketer.
There you go.
You know, because I'm like John the Baptist, but I'm baptizing you in good marketing services. You know, that's the difference there. And so it's the same thing. Like, you have to own it. We got a guy here that I've had on this show before. His name is Goat Man. And it's the exact same thing. His branding is everything goats, because all of his products come from the goat in some way, shape, form, or fashion, whether it's, you know, goat milk being made into soap or, you know, whatever he's making, it all comes from the goat. So he's the goat man. That's just, it is what it is. Exactly. So I had to go on that tangent to say that I love this branding, you know, pun intended, Brandmother. Like, it's great to just kind of go to your roots, know who you are, and then make yourself into that entrepreneur, and then tell other people, I can do the same thing for you, no matter where your roots come from. So that's awesome. And, you know, G-Town, H-Town, like, we all have that nice mix, just like Waller did. I mean, look at the rodeo going on right now, you know, and they've got all these Houston artists that come in, and it's just like, I don't know, we can all take part in either side of ghetto or country whenever we want to in Houston and in Galveston. And that's just the way we roll. So that's amazing. So you started this thing, you got to it. You said cooking is no longer for us to make a living. Where's your husband kind of playing in all of this? Like, what did his job become?
His job, he's trying to be I'm trying to turn him into a trophy husband.
Okay.
Turn him into a trophy husband. But now his new thing is he's gotten into doing voiceover. And he's always been kind of a media whore, which is why it wasn't hard to push him in front of the camera all those times. But just being able to, like, even helping him to develop his brand as the hospitable box. It's like, dude, tell him you speak food, travel, and booze. And that's how you make your name. Because a lot of other voiceover artists, what they do is like, I just base it on, I do narration or I do e-learning. No, you speak food, booze, and travel. Those are your things. And it makes for a better brand rather than a better concept. And getting him to that kind of vibe, it's like he is my toughest probably client, non-paying client, because half the time he's listening to me as his wife is like, oh, she's just talking wah, wah, wah. Instead of actually, he has his moments where he listens, but sometimes it just comes across as, my wife is nagging me. You know what? I'm going to go shut the heck up and I'm going to go sit right here and be cool.
Yeah, I'm guilty as charged. And then when everything falls apart, and y'all come back to us and you're like, yeah, if you would have just listened to me. And it's like, all right, shut up. I just need to get through this. Now, how do we fix it? Like, let's just go. Like, can we not talk about it? So you're talking about niching down, right? Where he has this brand, he's doing these things, and he wants to niche down into these three things he knows and loves.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think that's so smart.
With what I saw when he started getting into voiceover and what I saw a lot of the people in the industry doing, it's like, it's really raggedy. And I don't know how else to put it, because I saw a lot of raggedy sites. I saw a lot of things trying to mesh together. And even though they have this voice talent, they don't know how to brand that voice talent. It's just like a lot of people when you see out here, and I tell people, stop calling yourself a freelancer. Either you have a business or you don't, period. But when you're doing voiceover, all you see is the voice. It's no different than a restaurant thinking that it's all about the food. Sweetie, you don't need all of this menu in order to make your money. If you have one thing, why do you think there's so many chicken places? Why are there so many burger places? So being
Yeah.
able to own that as far as a voiceover artist, it's like, what do you speak well? It's like, if you can roll out these big words, like I say, Neil speaks food. He can, from any culture and all of that kind of stuff. So if you have something that you can lean into, then let's make it a brand. Let's not just put it out there like, oh, I do voiceover. Okay, so does that person, and so does that person. What's going to set you apart? So I think they could do a lot better in owning how they show up. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, Chef Robert said it best in Restaurant Impossible. It's like when you sit down, and I think they even talk about this on like Bar Rescue, but when you sit down and you open up this menu and you see 5,000 items, like I love Cheesecake Factory. Don't get me wrong. I love the place, but Jesus, do they have a novel for a menu?
Oh my God.
So every time I go there, it's just flipping through these pages, trying to figure out what I want. And I'm anxiety driven when it comes to the speed of getting things done. Like I want things to be done yesterday. So when I show up to a restaurant, my favorite thing is when it's like, all right, I've been here a million times. I know what I want. Let me get the surf and turf burger. Let me swap this out for this. Let me get this to drink. And then we're just moving on. Like that's my favorite thing to do. So when I sit down at somewhere like Cheesecake Factory and it's like, there's so many selections, I get overwhelmed. And then it just makes it to where it's like, I don't really want to go there anymore because I don't know what I want. It's going to take me forever to find it. And it's not that I'm in a hurry. I like to sit back and enjoy my food. But the point is, it's just too much. Like you said, it streamlines the whole process in the kitchen when you can take one sheet that has 5 different lunch items, 5 different dinner items, 5 different breakfast items. You can order these at these certain times. And it's like, this is what we do really good. And that transfers directly to business. And it's been the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around, especially as a marketing agency. And you know this in branding. It's like, well, I can help you with anything. You know, it's pretty universal on websites and graphic design and all this stuff. But it's like, you know what, even there, if I could take my kitchen, my back end, the stuff that we're pumping out, instead of changing up, hey, designers, today we need to work on this style or this thing. It's like, if I can just keep those designers focused on one type of design, everything we do is for med spas or everything that we do is for a lawyer, then they're all stuck in that same gear and it's easy for them to pump out better stuff. And it's the same thing in that kitchen and that back end, same thing for a narrator.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't have to change the whole mindset that you're in, because I hope one thing that people have learned on TikTok is when it comes to voice acting or voiceovers, you know, it's very much acting. You have to put yourself in that mindset. You have to read the script, semi-memorize it, or sometimes, depending on the brand, memorize it verbatim and say it in certain ways. And it's like, if all you're working on is a travel or food or whatever niche you're in, then you're always in that mode and that mindset. When you step in front of the microphone, you don't have to change it constantly. And so I say all that to say that when it comes to your branding and your service offering, niching down is so good because you can streamline what you're offering to the client. So I think it's a very good message that you're pushing there. And I think branding ties right into that of, you know, you need to attract your client with your brand and tell your story through your branding. And that's why it was so important to me when we pre-show were getting you set up and you're like, I could take the Ghetto Country Brandmother off and put my actual name if it's easier for you. And I'm like, no, that's who you are. Let's stick with that brand. So I think you're doing great work on advising with that.
Yeah. Because that's what I tell people, because once you get into I tell people I am not a brand, but I have a brand. So knowing that I have a personal brand, this means that I have created boundaries around this. When I stop being Ghetto Country Brandmother, I got to go back to being wife, mother, sister, and all the other things. And sometimes I got to actually go back and be Phyllis and sit with myself. But it creates the boundaries, like even coming on for this show. I tell people when I get ready to do a podcast, whether it's my own or someone else's, I got to go get the lipstick, the hat, and the glasses. And I'm instantly transported into being the Ghetto Country Brandmother. Now, I don't necessarily do that when I do public speaking or whatever, but it changes the frame of mind. And I don't want to put my life on display, but I do want to put a level of my personality on display. So when I talk to people about having a personal brand, I say, sweetie, you get to have a personal life too. You don't have to share any and everything for people to like you, because at the end of the day, I would rather respect you. I respect the game. I don't need to see you skating and fighting and buttering your toast. I don't care. I want to know, what do you do for me as a business? That's what's relevant. If you have a life story that's relevant to your business, then that's what you bring to the personal brand. You don't bring all your other baggage, your vulnerability, and vulnerability is good. Let me back that up a little bit. Vulnerability is good as long as it's relevant. But don't be trying to extract, I'm going to make people cry and I want them. Oh, please. How about just do you to the best of your ability and make it brandable and relevant? That's what personal branding is about to me. It is not about, oh, I am my brand. No, you know, it missed me with the crazy. I'm not here for that. I'm really not.
So what am I getting out of a coaching experience with you? Because, you know, saying kind of like developing that brand, it could be a broad sword or a broad paintbrush here. So are you basically finding out who I am as a person and then helping me just develop my story? Or what exactly is it that you are coaching me to do?
It's not just a story. It's just like I was on a call with a client earlier today. And part of what I talk about code, camp, and play. So it's like the DNA code of the brand, how you set up camp, and then how you play the game. And also you have all these different things, but it's more than a story. It's like, where do you want to stand to be attractive? Whereas when I was learning brand strategy, what they want to tell me, oh, you go out and you do surveys and you check out your people and you see what they want and then you go build it. No. I'm standing 10 toes down in what I do well. I'm not building the daggone thing, and I'm trying not to cuss on your show. But I'm not trying to fit into that box because, again, this is me going back. I may as well take off Ghetto Country and go back to trying to be that business coach that did not fit me. But if you can tell me with the client that I had this morning, it's like we're having a hard time figuring out our code. And I had to break it down. Sweetie, first of all, the code is the core message that you're going to put out. Because it's not just about, you know what, we create great websites and then we do this thing. No, there's a core message that goes along with everybody. And you can tell this core message 20,000 different ways and it will never get old. So if you tell me that you're here to build a legacy, there are so many ways to build a legacy. There's so many ways to tell the story about a legacy. And if that's what you want to stand 10 toes down in, then why are you talking about biscuits? Come on now. It don't make sense. And people will make all these leaps and bounds instead of, you know what, this is where I stand. So when I tell you that I believe in this thing, this is what I believe in wholeheartedly. And instead of talking about I'm committed to this thing, how about we be dedicated? Because people give up on commitments all up and through. I'm not going to stick to my diet. I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm not doing none of that. But what I'm dedicated to is, you know, it's just like breathing. I'm dedicating to having this impact, this change. And if you know what that is, then there is no way that anybody can move you off of that. You won't listen to 20 and 30 different gurus telling you something different. And it's like, oh, well, I got to change. No, I've already made up my mind. This is where I stand. But then the other part is understanding that as a personal brand, you will mature because you will learn as you grow. So you don't, just because you're planted here does not mean you can't grow somewhere else. And it's just owning all of that as far as your personal brand is concerned. Somebody asked me, well, how do you make sure the personal brand, because I talk about the personal brand overshadowing the business. And it's like, it's not about when you're trying not to overshadow, then what you're doing is you're trying to create separation. Because especially when you're being a business of one, if you're a solopreneur, you don't want everybody coming to look at you all the time for the work. You want them to go to the business for the work. You just coming for me because I'm the expert of this thing. And so your personal brand gets to endorse the business brand so that people are constantly blowing up the business. Because if they're blowing you up, your phone is ringing and you now just made yourself an employee of your own business. That's not what you did this for. So it's about the separation of it all, not the overshadowing, not the I am my brand. It's deeper than that. It really is. So
are you focusing on both the company and the entrepreneur or solopreneur at the same time?
Yes. Because for me,
Gotcha.
it's about scalability. Because that's why Ghetto Country Brandmother is a part of Brandma's house. Brandma's house is going to grow and scale in a way that it licenses out, kind of like Donald Miller, how he has all the different coaches under telling the brand story. So that's what I see for my future. So as I begin to do that, it's like, you know what, you might not be able to handle the Ghetto Country Brandmother, but maybe you need the soccer Brandmother or whatever that person's personal brand is. But they all fall under Brandma's house. That's why the HBIC, I'm the head Brandma in charge, but trust and believe there's going to be some other ones. Yep. You get to own that. And it's saying that you can show up within your personal brand, but you still are a representation of the overall house. Don't get crazy. Because you know your mama used to tell you, well, go on to my house, stay in my house. Don't.
I mean, that's kind of what we do here at Beefy Marketing is instead of, we're not so much we offer coaching and consulting
Mm-hmm.
if you need it, but we're focused on building things for other people, whether it's podcasts or websites, or like we're that action for
Yes.
that business. But you're right, just kind of naturally we've followed this same brand strategy here, where you've got John the marketer, and then when Andrew and I are together and he's the CEO who's trying to take a step back, that's why John the marketer is here now, is because it's like I'm the one that's trying to offer this marketing stuff, so that when you go to Andrew, that's a specialty.
Yeah.
That's a huge consultation fee. That's something bigger. He's still really involved with the company right now, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But he's trying to get that to where, exactly like you said, it's like, I'm going to pass you to John the marketer, or
Yes.
I'm going to pass you to Kara, who we need to come up with a brand name for that runs social, or I'm going to pass you to John the video, who runs all of our video stuff and production. And, it's that same exact thing.
Yes.
When we're together, it's the beefy boys, and that's what people call us instead of,
I love it.
Because everywhere we go in town, it's just like, oh, those are the beefy boys. Yeah. The, beefy marketing. And it's the same thing. Like, you just see it play out in real life. You're exactly right. You can't have yourself so tied to the company that you have to do every single part of it. You've got to learn, especially if you're going to scale, how to pass some of that stuff off.
Yeah.
And, instead of being the CEO that's making the sales, you got to be the CEO that is leading the salesman and supporting the salesman. Same thing with social media. Instead of making these social posts yourself, you need to empower someone who's going to come in and say, hey boss, it's time to make social content. Like, sit there and say this and let me video it. All those things. So it's very important stuff. So how do I get connected with you to figure out if it's a good partnership for us to work together?
For me, it's like, you can find me on social media. If you go at GC Brandmother, you can find me on TikTok, Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn and all of those things. But I'm very much of the mind that if you're about chasing money, I don't think I want to work with you. I'm just going to be very blunt. But the part is that, sweetie, I want you to make all the money. So don't get it twisted. But you cannot build a brand off of chasing money. That's you saying, I want a job. I want somebody to pay me. Versus, I'm trying to be impactful. I'm trying to do something that's going to change. Because I'm sure beefy marketing has a whole reason why they're doing this. And I'm not talking about the whole begin with why. I'm not Simon Sinek. But there is a reason why you're doing this. And so if we can find a thing, in one of my clients, I want to leave a legacy. So now we're talking about the legacy of design and what that means for every person that you touch and how you impact their legacy. That's something bigger than money. But hell, I want you to charge a whole lot of money for it too.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But it can't be the thing you're leading with, because honestly, if you're leading with the money, it's kind of greedy, right? And that's the same thing like this podcast. This podcast is my why. Mm-hmm. This podcast is, we're looking for small business owners that are small to medium-sized businesses. And I know you and I understand that, but sometimes the listener doesn't understand that a small business is up to 5 million annually.
Yes.
That's what I'm after. I'm looking for those companies that are 750K plus, that can afford a marketing budget, that can come to us and say, I've got $3,000 or $4,000 a month. This is what I want you to build me. That's my target client. But the thing is, I'm a small, like tiny business owner, where I'm less than that client that I'm looking for. And we talk to those people all the time. And it's like, it sucks that you don't have the budget for it. Like, I had a guy come to me this morning and he's like, hey, I got an extra $300. What should I do to help out my marketing with it this month? And I'm like, save it.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
I know, but those are the people I want to help. Right. So that's why I have this show, is because it's like, I don't want to tell this guy, give me your $300 and I'll give you something in trade for that. And I'll help you out. Yeah. I mean, I could take that 300 and probably make something impactful for him, but not the way he needs to, because I could run a Google ad for him for a month at, $150 budget, and then take 150 to 200 for myself and, say, oh yeah, we're good. That's what we did. Or why not just say, hey, I want to get you on the show. And then I want to tell people about you for free. Like, that's the whole point of this show, is first, we're going to lead with that. It's relational sales. I want to build a relationship with you. I want to know you, and I want to know how we can work together to succeed. And if money comes out of that, great. And if it doesn't, then great. We still had something fun together, and we can both move on and find something that's going to be beneficial to us. So I'm with you 100%. If somebody comes in and they just say, all I want to do is make sales so that I can make the company money and make me money, well, that's great. But I feel like if you do good now, the money will come later.
That part. And I love that you're saying that, because it's going back to when you were talking about being your CEO, he's basically a brand leader and a business leader. And that's totally different than being a boss, and which a lot of people don't get. I need y'all to drop that boss status, because
Yep.
you can't boss nobody but yourself. But
Absolutely.
then you already know that you have a problem with your brand or your marketing. When you come to your first question to either you or me, how do I get more leads? Sweetie, I already know you got a problem, and I can't fix it, because it's not about getting you more leads. It's your branding hasn't moved into your marketing hasn't moved into conversion. You're broken along those lines. And if you can't afford to pay for that help, you know what? It's going to be a long ass learning curve for you.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but that is the simple truth. And a lot of people don't want to face that truth. Well, I have the lead magnet and I've done the research, but have you taken the action? Have you actually given people something that they want to get hooked on? And I see so much basic, oh my goodness, it's basic crap that's out there, because people are afraid to say what it is that they really want to say. I help entrepreneurs create impact. Seriously? That's the best you can do? Which entrepreneurs are you talking to? The ones that make $1 or the ones that make $50? The ones that make, which ones are you talking to? Okay, are there entrepreneurs in a specific industry, or do they have a specific problem? And for me, get rid of the word help. Give me something else. I tell my clients, I nurture. I am the business mom you didn't know you needed. I will nurture your behind all the way to the bank. That is the point. But to say that I help, people know how to help themselves. They know how to go out and get help. They don't know that I know how to nurture, which is different. And so it's with you coming out, and especially with people wanting to know who they're working with. Yes, I have a personal brand. I create Ghetto Country Brandmother because I want you to make sure that you understand this is where I began and Phyllis ends, so that you don't get the two confused, because Phyllis is kind of hot. I don't think you want to mess with her on a good day. So you get to own that part, and you get to keep some things for yourself. And that's very important to me. One of the things I started leaning into was telling people that I'm a life coaching brand strategist, because I'm going to need you to get your life together before you try to go out here and get this thing together. Because if you're not standing 10 toes down, confident in what you're offering, you're going to stutter on that price. Oh, well, I want to charge $5,000. Sweetie, you can't even get $5,000 out your mouth. So you're not confident in this. You cannot be okay to say this thing. I hear imposter syndrome. Really? Why do you feel like an imposter? You have the credentials, you have the education, you have the experience. Well, I feel like people aren't going to listen to me. Then we got to get you straight before we send you out here into the world to go make your money. Stop wasting time. And that's what personal branding is to me. It's not about fitting into the box of what the customer wants. It's standing 10 toes down, confident in what you offer. And then being able to speak about the value. Don't list off we're going to do this, this, and this. No, I want to see the value. I know the price. Show me the value. That's it. That's it.
Yeah. It's honest business. It's being able to say, this is what I offer. And yes, this is the price, or this is the product, but this is what I'm bringing to the table, and knowing that with confidence. And I'll tell you, I'm definitely someone who internally struggles with that imposter syndrome. It's always like, the podcast isn't as big as I think it is, or is not going to be as successful as I think it is, or, something else. And then I just kind of take those little things where, I look and I see top 10% podcasts, and I'm like, okay, that's a boost. I get it. I am doing something good. No, I'm not top 1%. I'm not Team Never Quit. I'm not Joe Rogan. I'm not like one of these big, huge podcasts, but I know the value that this show brings. Yeah. And that's what, when talking to you about my podcast, you would never know I have those doubts in my mind.
That part.
Because everything I talk about is, this is the value it's going to bring. Here's how you sign up. I get you on when I can get you on. We release it when we can release it. And then here's ways that you can monetize the show to make it work better for you. Whether you want to go the free route or the paid route, figure it out. Let me know. We'll talk about that when it comes. And then after that, it's just, we're here to do something for you, to be a benefit for you. And it's the same thing when I go into a sales meeting. It's like, I know everything I need to know for that sales meeting, but sometimes you have that little thought in the back of your mind, and I just have to find the courage to kick that out and say, hey, I know I got here by busting my ass and learning everything I could over the past couple of years to get here, and now be someone that's able to talk about this stuff versus that first time that I ever had a podcast episode, or that first sales call I ever had where I was shaking like a leaf and I wasn't sure what to say. And now it's just like become your own person and just exude that brand out of you without having to say anything. Yeah. And I love that that's what you're doing. So how do we get to work with you? What's the best way to kind of reach out, find out if we're that good fit? And if you can give me some, like, does it cost me $5,000 to go through your program or $500 to go through your program? Like, what does it look like as far as a financial commitment? What's your ideal customer?
My ideal customer is someone who wants to unpack what it is they're trying to build. I have shorter programs. I have what I call the 2-word brand. Like I say, Ghetto Country started out as my 2-word brand, but it became my moniker. My descriptor 2-word brand, when I tell people I am the Ghetto Country Brandmother, I am that nurturing, empathic bitch, then that empathic bitch is my 2-word brand, because I want to know what you're going to get when you work with me. It's like, sweetie, I'm going to fight just as hard as you fight for everything that you're trying to build. But once you sit down, trust and believe, a bitch, you're going to walk out the door. I'm done. Okay, don't be calling me back. Don't be playing with my feelings. I'm not playing with you. But so there's a 2-word brand, and that's like $2,500. And that's where we sit down and we have this conversation so I can figure out how best to have this 2-word brand that will connect you to your audience, connect you to yourself, and still connect you to your business. Because it has to kind of encompass all three, so that when you walk in the room and you tell somebody you're this, I'm the so-and-so, it doesn't require any other explanation. But what it's done is that it's hooked somebody. It's like, ooh, tell me more. Why you call yourself the Ghetto Country Brandmother? What is that about? And you get to now have an engaging conversation. It does not require you to pull a dry ass pitch out of your back pocket. It just is what it is. I'm the Ghetto Country Brandmother. My brand babies, I take them from brand babies to brand leaders because I want them to show it as best they can for themselves. So I have that. So, and then there's what I call the branded timeout. We're going to take 13 weeks and we're going to get all this stuff together. We're going to code, camp, and play and do all the things to make sure that everything, all those gaps and holes you had in your brand are now filled. Because trust and believe, if there are holes and gaps in your brand, then it's leaking money, and it should not be. And that is $7,000. Now, for people who want to go the long haul with me, and I don't make you sign a contract. If you leave 1 month, trust and believe, I'm finding somebody to fill your spot. You can't come back till I have another one. But that is $1,700 a month. This is where we sit down and we unpack slowly, because not only are we now doing branding, but we're doing branding, we're doing marketing, and we're figuring out the content that you need to put out. We're doing SWOT analysis. We're doing audits to make sure that everything is going the way that it's supposed to go. Because you working with me, you now have the opportunity to pivot. Because otherwise, I have people that, I never forget my first brand strategy client. I gave her what she asked for, but I didn't give her what she wanted. She asked for this thing, and it's like, it was all the things. It was the magic, but it was not what she wanted. And it never happened. And so I had to hear secondhand that it was not a thing. And I had to hear it months later. So now if we sit down in Branding University and we sit and we work this thing out, it's like, okay, is this fitting you? Well, no, I'm not comfortable with saying that about myself, or I'm not comfortable in. Okay, then let's find where you're comfortable. Because my thing is, we're trying to get you to the level of comfort where you can start making your money. Now you can hire for the things that you're uncomfortable with. If you're better at writing and not at speaking, then you know what? Let's write all the things, and then you can hire somebody to do the video. You get to create all these different things, but you can only do it if you have the money to invest. But you got to start somewhere. If you have more time than money, then sweetie, I'm sorry, you got to do content marketing. If you have more money than time, then go advertise. You get to choose. But it's finding out where you fit best. So those are my three things. 2-word branding, branded timeout, and branded university.
I love it. Are you on social media, YouTube, anywhere, kind of giving out those free lessons to attract people into it?
On my podcast, I have people. I have a brand, Ask Brandma anything type vibe. And so it's like, if you come on, you might get a 2-word brand out of me for free. You don't have to pay the $2,500, but it's because I want people to understand. It's like, let's find your unique thing, because everybody's trying to tell you, do the competitive analysis, see where the gaps are, and then fill a gap. But some people can't fill a gap. So you know what you fill it with? You fill it with that unique thing. What's unique about you? That's the gap filler, because how you package what it is in this personal brand is going to attract people. Sweetie, you're still doing design work. You're still doing copywriting, but you know what? I package it like this. So That's my thing.
Yeah. I love it. What's the best way to get in touch with you then and kind of get into your ecosystem?
The best way to get in touch with me is holla at Brandma's house. That's my email. HOLLA at Brandma's house.
I love it. And of course, we're going to include all this information in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
That way our listeners can get in contact with you and make sure that they are taking part in everything that you're offering if they're out there looking for that brand strategy. I think it's a really great thing, and definitely looking for somebody who has a level of commitment that they're comfortable with as far as getting you on to do what you need to do with them. But yeah, I think it's been a great conversation, and I can't thank you enough for coming on and talking to me today.
Thank you so much, John. This has been fun. And I know sometimes my mouth get away from me, so I appreciate you for letting me talk.
No, it's man, it's all a part of your brand. It's how you are. It's who you are. And I'm the same way. I just love having great conversations. So to me, when it flows like that, this makes for the best show compared to those ones that are 20 minutes long. And it's just like pulling teeth to get the answers out. I don't know. Maybe my listeners disagree, but I think that those ones that go extra are the ones that they're like, hey, you know what? I really enjoyed that episode.
Yes. This was good. I appreciate it. Definitely.
Of course. And listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Small Business Origins. We can't thank you enough for being here, listening to entrepreneurs as they share their story and share their brand. Thank you for checking out Brandma here, one of the best guests that we've ever had on here. I don't think we've had anyone on here that has another nickname like I do. I think most people come on and just say, this is my name, but this has been Ghetto Country Brandmother out here raising up her brand kids to be good and do good. And I hope that you just find her as a valuable resource and hit her up after all this. But if nothing else, if you could just go listen to her show. Listen to the content she's putting out, and that means so much for us. As a matter of fact, the best thing you can do for a podcast is leave that 5-star review, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. So please head over to www.smallbusinessorigin.com. Get hooked up with all the places we offer on there that our podcast can be found, which is everywhere, and leave us that review. We would absolutely love it. But that's it for us. Until next week for another episode, stay beefy, my friends.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Small Business Origins.
I love an origin story.
If you like what you just heard, leave us a review, subscribe, and share with a friend.
You guys, check this out.
They're going to love it. You're going to love it.